Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you. My name is Isabella, and I lead a seemingly ordinary life in a quiet suburban neighborhood. By day I work as a dental assistant, a job that requires precision and a steady hand qualities I pride myself on. My husband Charles is a software engineer, often absorbed in his work, leaving me with ample time to manage our home. We share our life with Cody, our loyal and affectionate German Shepherd who has been a part of our family for 6 years. Our life together is comfortable, predictable, and to an outsider, enviable. But beneath this veneer of normalcy there are cracks, subtle shifts in our relationship that I've been too busy or perhaps too afraid to address. As I sit in our cozy living room, the evening light casting long shadows across the hardwood floor, I reflect on the day's events. Today was, like any other, filled with the usual routine, preparing breakfast, walking Cody and then heading to work. But something felt different, a nagging sensation at the back of my mind, like a whisper in a crowded room at work. I was more distracted than usual. My hands, usually so steady, trembled slightly as I handed instruments to Dr. Henry. He noticed, his eyes narrowing with concern, but I brushed it off with a smile, claiming it was just a minor headache. Yet the truth was far more complex. Lunchtime found me in the break room, staring at my sandwich. The bread as white and plain as my life seemed to be. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, something monumental. The drive home was a blur, my thoughts consumed by the secret I've been keeping. It's not something I planned. It just happened, like a seed taking root in the dark, unnoticed until it's too late to uproot. Charles was already home when I arrived, his face illuminated by the glow of his computer screen. He barely looked up as I entered his mind, lost in lines of code. Our conversation was minimal, the usual exchange of pleasantries. But tonight his distance felt like a chasm. Cody greeted me with his usual enthusiasm, his tail wagging so hard it could have powered a small town. His presence was a comfort, a reminder of simpler times I fed him, watching as he ate with the same gusto he had since he was a pup. Dinner was quiet, the clicking of cutlery against plates, the only sound. I tried to engage Charles in conversation, but his responses were short, his mind elsewhere. It's not that he's unkind. He's just distant. And in that distance my secret has grown like a shadow stretching across our lives. After dinner, I retreated to the living room, sinking into the plush couch that has seen countless evenings like this one. The room was filled with the soft hum of the heater and the occasional bark from Cody outside, chasing after some invisible foe. I picked up a book, but the words swam before my eyes, meaningless. My mind was elsewhere, replaying the moment when everything changed. It was a few months ago, a seemingly innocuous day, when I met someone at the park, a chance encounter. Or so I thought. His name was Lucas and he was new to the neighborhood. We talked about cute dogs, about the weather, about nothing of importance. But there was something about him, a spark that ignited a part of me I thought had long been extinguished. Our meetings became regular under the guise of cute dog walking. Each time the conversations grew deeper, more personal. I found myself sharing things with him that I hadn't even told Charles. And then one evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, something happened, a kiss, unexpected yet not unwelcome. That kiss was the beginning of the end, or perhaps the start of something new. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and utterly wrong, but it was real. More real than the life I had been living now. As I sit here, the weight of my secret presses down on me. I've been living a double life, one part of me with Charles, the other with Lucas. The thrill of the secret, the fear of discovery, it's all consuming. I glance at the clock, its hands moving with a relentless pace, time that relentless force marches on, indifferent to the turmoil within me. I wonder how long I can keep this up, how long until the cracks in my facade become too wide to ignore. The storm brewing within me isn't just about the secret affair. It's about the realization that my life, as comfortable and predictable as it seems, isn't fulfilling me. The question that haunts me now as the shadows deepen in our living room is, what will I do when the storm breaks? Will I seek shelter in the safety of my current life? Or will I step into the unknown, letting the storm wash away everything I've known for now? I sit, the book forgotten in my lap, as I contemplate the choices that will define not just my future, but the very essence of who I am. The day had been typical. I navigated through my routine with the ease of long practice. After work, I returned home to find Charles engrossed in his latest project, barely noticing my arrival. Cody, however, greeted me with his usual enthusiasm, his tail wagging furiously. I prepared dinner, set the table, and we ate in a silence that was neither comfortable nor uncomfortable. Just there. After dinner, Charles retreated to his office, and I decided to unwind with a glass of wine. Settling into the couch with Cody by my side, the night deepened and with it my sense of loneliness grew. I found myself wandering through the house, feeling disconnected from the life I had built. Cody followed me, his presence a small comfort. I paused in the hallway, staring at the family photos that lined the walls. Each image captured a moment of happiness, of togetherness, but now they felt like relics from another life. My eyes lingered on a photo from our wedding day. Charles' smile wide and genuine, his arm around me, both of us, unaware of the future that awaited. The joy in that picture seemed so distant so far now. The weight of my secret affair with Lucas was like a stone in my stomach, growing heavier with each passing day. It wasn't just the thrill of the forbidden that kept me going back to him. It was the feeling of being truly seen, truly heard with Lucas. I wasn't just the wife, the homemaker, or the dental assistant. I was Isabella, someone with desires, dreams, and a voice that mattered. I moved to the kitchen, my steps silent on the cold tiles. The moonlight spilled through the window, casting a silver glow over the room. I poured another glass of wine, the liquid dark and rich against the glass. As I sipped, I contemplated the crossroads at which I stood. The affair had started innocently enough, a conversation about cute dogs at the park, but it had quickly spiraled into something more. Lucas's attention was intoxicating, his laughter a balm to the loneliness that had crept into my life. Yet each moment with him was tinged with guilt, a reminder of the vows I had made, the life I had promised to uphold. I walked back to the living room, my mind racing. What would happen if Charles found out? The thought alone was enough to make my heart race, my palms sweat. But then, what would happen if I continued down this path with Lucas? Could I leave behind the security of my marriage, the familiarity of my home, for the uncertainty of a new beginning? Cody nudged my hand with his nose, pulling me from my thoughts. I scratched behind his ears, his warmth a stark contrast to the cold uncertainty that filled me. What should I do, boy? I whispered, knowing full well he couldn't answer. Yet his presence was a comfort. The clock on the mantel chimed, marking the late hour. I knew I should go to bed, try to sleep, but sleep seemed as elusive as peace of mind. Instead, I found myself drawn to the back door, stepping out into the cool night air. The garden was bathed in moonlight, the flowers closed up for the night, their colors muted in the darkness. I walked to the edge of the yard, where the shadows were deepest, and sat on the old wooden bench. Here in this quiet corner of our world I felt the full weight of my decisions. The affair was not just a betrayal of Charles. It was a betrayal of myself, of the life I had chosen. As I sat there, the loneliness that had been my constant companion seemed to whisper to me, urging me towards a decision. The thought of leaving, of starting anew, was terrifying, yet exhilarating. Could I really walk away from everything I had known for a chance at something that might not even exist? The night air was crisp and I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the chill seep through my thin sweater. I thought about Lucas, about the way he looked at me, the way he listened. But then I thought about Charles, about the life we had built together. The good times we had shared. The decision loomed large, like the dark silhouette of the trees against the night sky. I knew I couldn't continue living this double life. This lie. Something had to give. The question was, what would I choose? Would I cling to the safety of the known? Or would I step into the unknown, risking everything for the possibility of true happiness? I stood up, my decision not yet made, but the urgency of it pressing down on me like the heavy night air. I walked back into the house, Cody at my heels, his tail no longer wagging, but still by my side. As I closed the door behind me, I knew that the next steps I took would define not just my future, but the very essence of who I was. The house was silent, save for the soft snoring of Cody as he settled down. I made my way upstairs, each step a reminder of the path I had to choose. The storm within me wasn't just about the secret affair. It was about the realization that my life, as comfortable and predictable as it seemed, wasn't fulfilling me. The question that haunted me now as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, was what would I do when this storm breaks? Would I seek shelter in the safety of my current life? Or would I step into the unknown, letting the storm wash away everything I've known? It was in this state of mind, under the influence of a few too many glasses of wine, that I found myself in the back room, a space we rarely used, cluttered with old furniture and boxes. The air was thick with dust, and the dim light from a single bulb cast long shadows across the room. Cody had followed me, his eyes, watching me with that unconditional love cute dogs possess. In a moment of vulnerability or perhaps insanity, I did something I never imagined I would. I crossed a line that should never be crossed. The act was brief, shocking, and left me in a state of disbelief and horror. At what I had done, I had taken one of the old ornate knives from a box of antiques, a relic from a time when such items were not just decorative but functional. In a moment of clouded judgment, I had used it not on myself, but on Cody. The realization of my actions hit me like a wave, drowning me in guilt and confusion. How could I have let this happen? What will Isabella do now that she has committed an act she can undo? I dropped the knife, its metallic clang against the wooden floor, echoing in the silence of the room. Cody whimpered, his eyes wide with confusion and pain. I rushed to him, my hands trembling as I tried to soothe him to make amends for my unthinkable lays. "I'm so sorry, Cody," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. The room seemed to close in around me, the walls pressing down with the weight of my guilt. The wine had dulled my senses, but now the reality of what I'd done was stark and unforgiving. I wrapped Cody in an old blanket, trying to stop the bleeding, my heart racing with panic. What had I become? This wasn't me. This wasn't the Isabella who loved her cute dog, who cared for her family. I knew I had to act quickly. I couldn't let this moment define me. Nor could I let Cody suffer because of my mistake. I scooped him up, his weight heavier than usual. Or perhaps it was just the burden of my guilt. I carried him to the car, his whimper a constant reminder of my failure. Driving to the vet, the night seemed darker, the road longer. Every red light felt like a judgment. Every passing car a witness to my shame. At the vet clinic, the emergency lights were on, casting a sterile, harsh glow. I explained what had happened, my voice barely above a whisper, the words tasting like bile. The vet, a woman with kind eyes, but a stern demeanor, took Cody from me, her movement swift and professional. She didn't ask questions, just acted. I sat in the waiting room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of antiseptic filling my nose. Time stretched on each second, a reminder of the irreversible act I had committed. When the vet finally returned, her face was unreadable. "He's stable," she said, "but he'll need to stay here for observation. You can see him now if you'd like." I followed her to the back where Cody lay on a table, his fur shaved around the wound, a bandage in place. His tail thumped weakly against the metal when he saw me, and the relief was overwhelming, yet it did nothing to alleviate my guilt. I stroked his head, whispering apologies, promises of better days. Leaving the clinic, the world outside felt alien. The streetlights blurred through my tears, and the cool night air did little to calm the storm inside me. I drove home in silence, the radio off. The only sound, the hum of the engine and my own ragged breathing. Back at home, the house felt emptier, the silence more accusing. I went to the back room, where it all started. The knife was still on the floor, a silent testament to my lapse in judgment. I picked it up, the weight of it now, feeling like a chain around my neck. I cleaned it, not knowing why. Perhaps to erase the evidence of my own darkness. But the act felt hollow, as if I was merely going through the motions. I placed it back in the box, covering it with old photographs and letters, as if I could bury my mistake along with the past. Sitting on the edge of our bed, I looked around the room at the life I had built with Charles, the affair with Lucas, the growing distance between us. It all seemed trivial now compared to what I had done tonight. The realization that I was capable of such an act shook me to my core. I knew I had to confront this, not just for Cody's sake, but for mine. The storm within me wasn't just about the secret affair anymore. It was about the realization that I needed help. The life I had been living, the choices I had been making, they were leading me down a path I didn't recognize. I lay back staring at the ceiling, the shadows dancing as the streetlight outside flickered. Sleep was impossible, my mind replaying the evening's events. I had to make changes, not just in my relationship with Charles, but within myself. The affair, the drinking, the moment with Cody. It was all a cry for something I hadn't been able to articulate. The decision was clear now, not just about choosing between my current life and the unknown, but about choosing to heal, to seek help, to become someone I could recognize again. The storm within me wasn't just about external choices. It was about internal battles, about facing the darkness within and finding a way back to light as dawn broke, casting a soft light into the room. I knew what I had to do. I would visit Cody, make amends, and then I would talk to Charles, not about Lucas, not yet, but about us, about me, about the help I needed. The storm was breaking and I was ready to step into it, not away from it. The next morning, the weight of my actions pressed down on me like a physical force. I couldn't look at Cody without feeling a surge of shame. His tail thumped weakly against the floor, a stark contrast to his usual enthusiastic greeting. Charles, oblivious to the turmoil within me, chatted about his work over breakfast. I nodded. My response is automatic, my mind elsewhere, replaying the horror of last night. The day at work was a blur. My hands shook as I handed instruments to Dr. Henry, my thoughts a chaotic whirlpool of guilt and fear. Every patient's smile seemed to mock my inner turmoil. Every drill's whine, a reminder of the knife's metallic clang against the wooden floor. I felt like a fraud, a shadow of the competent assistant. I prided myself on being at home. The atmosphere was suffocating. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison of my own making. I needed to talk to someone, to confess. But who could I tell? The thought of Charles's reaction terrified me. His face, usually so impassive, would surely twist in disgust or disbelief. Could I bear to see that I considered leaving, disappearing? But where would I go? I paced the living room, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The family photos on the walls seemed to watch me, their eyes filled with judgment. I paused before a picture of Cody, his eyes bright and full of life, a stark contrast to the subdued cute dog I had left at the vet. My heart ached with the realization of what I had done, the irreversible damage I had caused. I poured myself another glass of wine, the liquid dark and rich against the glass. The alcohol did little to numb the pain, only serving to amplify my sense of isolation. I sat on the couch, the plush cushions offering no comfort, and stared at the ceiling, the shadows dancing as the streetlight outside flickered. The storm within me wasn't just about the secret affair anymore. It was about the realization that I needed help, the life I had been living, the choices I had been making. They were leading me down a path I didn't recognize. I had to confront this, not just for Cody's sake, but for mine. I knew I had to visit Cody, make amends. And then I would talk to Charles, not about Lucas, not yet, but about us, about me, about the help I needed. The storm was breaking and I was ready to step into it, not away from it. The drive to the vet was silent, the radio off, the only sound, the hum of the engine and my own ragged breathing. When I arrived, the vet greeted me with a professional smile, but her eyes held a hint of concern. "He's doing better," she said, leading me to where Cody lay. His tail thumped weakly when he saw me, and the relief was overwhelming, yet it did nothing to alleviate my guilt. I sat beside him whispering apologies, promises of better days. The bandage around his wound was stark, white against his fur. A reminder of my lapse in judgment. I stroked his head, feeling the warmth of his body, the life I had endangered. "I'm so sorry, Cody," I murmured, tears streaming down my face. Leaving the clinic, the world outside felt alien. The streetlights blurred through my tears, and the cool night air did little to calm the storm inside me. I drove home in silence, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me like the heavy night air. Back at home, the house felt empty, the silence more accusing. I went to the back room where it all started. The knife was still on the floor, a silent testament to my lapse in judgment. I picked it up, the weight of it now feeling like a chain around my neck. I cleaned it, not knowing why, perhaps to erase the evidence of my own darkness. But the act felt hollow, as if I was merely going through the motions. I placed it back in the box, covering it with old photographs and letters, as if I could bury my mistake along with the past. Sitting on the edge of our bed, I looked around the room at the life I had built with Charles, the affair with Lucas, the growing distance between us. It all seemed trivial now compared to what I had done tonight. The realization that I was capable of such an act shook me to my core. I knew I had to make changes not just in my relationship with Charles, but within myself. The affair, the drinking, the moment with Cody, it was all a cry for something I hadn't been able to articulate. I needed to find myself again to understand why I had strayed so far from the person I thought I was. The decision was clear now, not just about choosing between my current life and the unknown, but about choosing to heal, to seek help, to become someone I could recognize again. The storm within me wasn't just about external choices. It was about internal battles, about facing the darkness within and finding a way back to light as dawn broke, casting a soft light into the room. I knew what I had to do. I would visit Cody, make amends, and then I would talk to Charles, not about Lucas, not yet, but about us, about me, about the help I needed. The storm was breaking and I was ready to step into it, not away from it. The confrontation came unexpectedly. Charles, noticing my unusual behavior, pressed for answers in a moment of weakness. Overwhelmed by the guilt I confessed, the silence that followed was deafening. Charles's face went from confusion to horror to a cold, distant anger. He left the room and I heard the front door slam. I was alone with Cody, whose innocent eyes now seemed to judge me. The house felt like a prison, each room echoing with the gravity of my confession. I sat on the edge of our bed, the same bed where I had once felt safe and loved, now a cold expanse of emptiness, the weight of what I had done to Cody, the betrayal of my vows to Charles. It all crashed down on me like a tidal wave. I could hear the ticking of the clock, each second a reminder of the life I was about to lose. The next morning the house was eerily quiet. Charles hadn't come back and I was left with the silence and my thoughts. I visited Cody at the vet, where he was still under observation. His tail thumped weakly when he saw me, but the joy in his eyes was dimmed by pain. I whispered to him, promising to make things right, though I knew some things could never be undone. Returning home, the emptiness was palpable. I wandered through the rooms, each one a testament to the life I had built, now crumbling. The kitchen, where I had prepared countless meals, seemed foreign. The living room, where we had shared laughter and quiet evenings, now felt like a stage set for a tragedy. I sat at the dining table where last night's dinner plate still sat, untouched by Charles. The clicking of cutlery against plates from the night before echoed in my mind, a stark contrast to the silence. Now I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Charles's contact. What would I say? How could I possibly explain the unexplainable? The day dragged on, each minute stretching into an eternity. I tried to distract myself with chores, but every task was a reminder of my solitude. The laundry, the dishes. They all seemed to mock me, highlighting the life I was about to lose. As evening approached, the front door finally opened. Charles stood there, his face a mask of unresolved emotions. I stood up, my heart pounding in my C********, ready to face the storm. I had unleashed Charles the first. He held up a hand, stopping me mid-sentence. I need to understand, Isabella. Why? Why did you do it? The question hung between us, heavy and accusatory. I took a deep breath, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I don't know, it was a moment of insanity, a lapse in judgment. I was overwhelmed, overwhelmed by what his voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a knife, by everything, by the distance between us, by my own loneliness, by the fear of losing what we had. Lucas was there, he listened. He made me feel seen, but that's no excuse for what I did to Cody or to you. Charles's eyes searched mine, looking for sincerity or perhaps betrayal in Cody. How could you? Tears streamed down my face, my voice breaking. I can't explain it. Charles. It was a moment of madness, fueled by too much wine, by the storm inside me. I've never wanted to hurt him or you. I'm seeking help. I need to understand why I did it. He looked away, his jaw tight, processing. I need time, Isabella, time to think, to decide if I can even look at you the same way again. The room felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing down with the weight of our fractured life. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to make amends. To fix this. Charles nodded, a small, almost imperceptible movement. I'll stay at a hotel tonight. I need space. Watching him pack a bag, Each item he took felt like a piece of our life being chipped away when he left the door. Closing behind him was like a final judgment. Alone again. I walked back to the living room where the shadows had grown long. The storm within me had indeed broken, but not in the way I had anticipated. It wasn't just about choosing between my current life and the unknown. It was about facing the consequences of my actions, about trying to rebuild from the ruins of my own making. I sat down the plush couch, offering no comfort. Now the book I had tried to read the night before lay forgotten its pages, a metaphor for my life. Words that once made sense now, just a jumbled mess. I picked it up my fingers, tracing the spine, feeling the texture of the paper, grounding myself in the tangible. The night deepened and with it my resolve. I would visit Cody again, ensure he was healing, and then I would seek the help. I desperately needed therapy, counseling, whatever it took to understand the darkness within me and to prevent it from ever surfacing again. As I lay down, the ceiling above me seemed to hold the weight of my future, uncertain and daunting. The storm was not just breaking, it was raging, and I was at its epicenter. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope, a desire to step into the storm, not away from it, to face it, head on, to find my way back to light. In the days that followed, Charles moved out, unable to look at me or Cody. The divorce papers arrived, formalizing the end of our marriage. I was left to face the consequences of my actions alone. Therapy became my refuge, a place to understand and perhaps forgive myself. Cody remained by my side, his loyalty unwavering, a silent witness to my fall and my attempt at redemption. Life moved forward, but the shadow of that night lingered, a reminder of how quickly life can change. The house felt like a mausoleum, each room echoing with the absence of Charles. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft padding of Cody's paws. As he followed me from room to room, I spent hours in therapy dissecting my choices, my emotions, the darkness that had led me to that fateful night. My therapist, Dr. Emma, was patient, her voice a steady anchor in the storm of my guilt. I need to understand why I did it, I told her during one session, my voice barely above a whisper. Why I could hurt Cody, why I betrayed Charles, Dr. Emma nodded, her eyes kind but probing. Sometimes, Isabella, our actions are not just about the moment, but the culmination of many moments. You've been feeling disconnected, unseen. These feelings can manifest in ways we don't anticipate. Her words resonated, but they didn't erase the pain or the guilt. I visited Cody at the vet daily, watching a slow recovery, each visit a painful reminder of my lapse. The vet, Dr. Leo, was professionally yet compassionate, updating me on his progress, but her eyes held a silent judgment that mirrored my own. His wound is healing well, she said one afternoon, her voice clinical, but he's still under observation. We need to ensure there are no complications. I nodded, my throat tight, unable to speak. Cody's tail thumped weakly against a table, his eyes holding a trust that felt like a knife in my heart. Back at home, the emptiness was palpable. I tried to fill the void with activities, but every task was a reminder of my solitude. The kitchen, where I had prepared countless meals, now felt like a stage for a performance. I was no longer part of the living room. Once a place of comfort now seemed to mock me with its silence. One evening, as I sat alone on the couch, the doorbell rang. It was unexpected, jarring in the quiet. I opened the door to find Lucas standing there, his face a mix of concern and confusion. Isabella, I heard about what happened, he said, his voice low. I wanted to see if you're okay. I looked at him, the man who had been my escape, now standing on the threshold of my crumbling life. I'm not okay, Lucas. I've made a mess of everything. He stepped inside his presence, filling the room with attention I hadn't anticipated. I know I'm part of that mess, he admitted, his gaze dropping to the floor. But I care about you, Isabella. I want to help if I can. His words, meant to comfort only, stirred more turmoil within me. I need to fix myself first, I replied, my voice firm yet trembling. I've hurt people I love, and I need to understand why. Lucas nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'll be here if you need me, but I understand if you need space. After he left, the house felt even emptier. I sat back down, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. The affair, the incident with Cody. They were all symptoms of a deeper malaise within me. Days turned into weeks and slowly I began to rebuild therapy. Sessions became my sanctuary, where I learned to confront my feelings of isolation, my need for validation, and the destructive paths I had taken to find it. Dr. Emma helped me navigate through the guilt, the shame, and towards some semblance of forgiveness, not just for myself, but for the hope of mending what I could with Charles. Though that seemed increasingly unlikely, Cody's recovery was a physical manifestation of my own healing process. Each visit to the vet, each sign of improvement in his condition was a step towards redemption. I talked to him, shared my fears, my hopes as if he could understand, and in a way, he did. His eyes, once clouded with pain, began to brighten with life again. One evening, as the sun set casting long shadows across the living room, I sat with Cody, now back home, his wound nearly healed. I stroked his fur, feeling the warmth of his body, the life I had endangered but now cherished more than ever. "I'm trying, Cody," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm trying to be better." Therapy taught me about boundaries, about self-care, about the importance of communication and relationships. It was a slow, painful journey, but each session was a step towards understanding myself, towards becoming someone I could respect again. The divorce was finalized, a legal end to what had been a beautiful beginning. Charles and I met one last time, not in anger, but in a shared sorrow for what was lost. He looked at me, his eyes holding a mix of pain and something akin to pity. "I hope you find peace, Isabella," he said, his voice soft, almost a whisper. "I really do." I nodded, tears blurring my vision. "I hope we both do, Charles." As he walked away, I felt the finality of our chapter closing. The house, once a symbol of our shared life, now stood as a testament to my journey of self-discovery and atonement. Months passed and life took on a new rhythm. I found solace in small things: the morning walks with Cody, the quiet evenings with a book, the therapy sessions that were less about fixing what was broken, and more about building anew. I started volunteering at an animal shelter, finding a new purpose and helping creatures that couldn't voice their pain, much like I had once been. The question of whether I could ever find peace after such profound betrayal lingered. But in the quiet moments with Cody by my side, I felt the stirrings of something akin to peace. It wasn't the absence of pain or regret, but the presence of growth, of understanding, of a slow, painful reconciliation with myself. I knew the journey was far from over. The scars both on Cody and within me would always be there, reminders of a night that changed everything. But with each day I was learning to live with them, to see them not as marks of failure, but as badges of a hard-fought battle towards redemption. And in that there was a form of peace, a fragile, tentative peace. But peace nonetheless. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks.